right, so the cops have left. We can start our broadcast or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're doing the post All-Star tiers for the NBA. Obviously, there was a few trades before the deadline. Teams are pretty much locked in. Only the buyout market is left, and that'll happen, I think, around March 1st, give or take. And then remember the new rules that if a player earns over $12.3 million, which is the minimum, teams that are over the cap are not allowed to sign them. So you're talking about Boston, you're talking about Denver, you're talking about New York. I think there's like 7 teams. I digress. This, I believe, was the old tier system. I could be wrong. I could be right, because I don't know why OKC wasn't there, but all right, let's reset it. All right, so we redid the list here. So it's pretty straightforward. If they don't win a championship, these teams are going to consider the season a failure. These are scratching at the door of the conference finals. They're close, but they're going to have to add some pieces. This is a solid top 6 in each conference playoff teams. These are the play-in teams 7 through 10 who are going to fight to get into those last 2 spots. These will miss the play-in most than likely. And these are the tankers, those that are going after Cooper Flag. So we're going to start with the East. We saw the Knicks and the Cavs yesterday. So we're going to start with the Knicks. And, they're 0-7 against the top teams, whether it's the Thunder, Cavs, or Celtics. They have been decimated by injuries, specifically with Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart was out recently, OG's first game back, so I don't want to completely throw them off, but they're not a championship contender. They need to beat the Cavs or the Celtics 4 times in seven games. And I see that it's going to be hard pressed, even with Tibbs doing a shortened rotation. The bench is just terrible. Not terrible, I want to say very inconsistent. They need consistent 15 to 20 points from Deuce. They need 10 to 15 from Payne, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to put them, we'll put them close, but maybe next year. They're going to have to rebuild their bench. They're going to have a really strong bench. They're going to have to be loaded top through 10, 1 through 10, even though Tibbs typically does 1 through 9. But because of injuries and the fact that he overworks people, you're going to need a person that can come in and contribute as the 10th person outside looking in. So we'll definitely have them close, but maybe next year. The Hawks made all their trades at the deadline. They got rid of DeAndre Hunter. They moved Bogdan Bogdanovic. So they were beating the Celtics. They were beating the Cavs. I'm surprised that they decided to blow it up. Landry Fields, former Knick, is the GM. So I'm not going to say that they're tanking per se. I'll say that they're outside the play-in. They're not going to make the play-in tournament. But, I don't see them as tanking yet. They still have Trae Young. They got to figure out what they're going to do with him. He looks like he's going to get traded in the offseason potentially. They need to do a complete rebuild, and Trae Young doesn't make any sense. The Celtics are definitely a top 4 team. They seem bored with the regular season. They have the biggest salary cap team in the NBA. They're trying to sell their team. So that is going to be the next owner's problem. They are going to get their draft picks frozen every year, probably for the next 4 years, because their salary cap is egregious. It is unwarranted. They may pay $300 to $400 million in taxes, so they can't even make a move. But they're really pretty much set. Like I said, they look bored in the regular season. They're waiting for the playoffs. They're trying to stay healthy. They're not concerning themselves with losses and wins, and you can see that they're in the matrix. They're not even thinking of the regular season as serious, so they're definitely championship contenders. The Nets are definitely tanking. Even though Jordi Fernandez has done a great job as the head coach of a team that has made just an enormous amount of trades and releases. They released Ben Simmons. They traded Dennis Schroeder, who's playing well for them. They tried to trade Cam Johnson. They wanted 2 first-round picks. Nobody was biting. So, this is going for the tank. They have multiple first-round picks available to them, including their own, the Knicks, and I think 2 others. So they have 4 first-round picks in a very loaded draft. So they should be able to rebuild pretty quickly here. The Hornets tried to trade Mark Williams. They're going nowhere fast. I don't see them getting anywhere. They seem competitive at times, but this team is just, there's not much to say about them. They're just not a very good team. LaMelo Ball gets empty stats. Shouldn't have been an all-star. I'm glad he wasn't. The Bulls are also tanking. They traded Zach LaVine. They got rid of DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso in the offseason. They re-signed Lonzo Ball, which is nice for their future. Matisse Bezakis, I don't even know if that's how you say his name. He looks like he's going to be a stud. Their best bet is to get a high draft pick. I don't know if they owe draft compensation to anybody. I'm trying to think of maybe the Magic owe them. I don't know. I think they have all their picks, but they're going for a rebuild finally. So we'll see how it goes. The Cavaliers, this is the biggest jump. They were close, but maybe next year, the first two iterations of this tiers list. I have solidly moved them into championship contention. I fully expect a conference final between the Cavs and the Celtics, barring injury to a major person. Getting DeAndre Hunter. And they also signed another wing defensive player. I can't remember who. But players are going over to the Cavs with hopes of a championship. Everybody sees it. They have two athletic wings now. Let me actually see who the other player is. They signed Javonte Green from the Pelicans. He's another big wing. So him and DeAndre Hunter is going to help a lot against the Celtics because they were overmatched with the Celtics. They need bodies to put on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, so that is going to be very good for them. They match up well now with the Celtics. I really like them. They move really fast. In that game where they completely destroyed the Knicks, they eviscerated them on the pick and roll. They hit open threes. They beat them in the paint. They beat them in passing. They beat them in everything. They're 1 to 2 tiers above the Knicks. The Knicks are nowhere close to them. Again, we got to wait to see what the Knicks look like with Mitchell Robinson. When you have other wings pressing and not worrying about the paint, leave the paint alone to Mitch. It's going to really help. And Mitch dominated the Cavs, so we'll see. But I think the Knicks need another year going around, and the Cavs definitely look like they are a serious threat, although I still have the Celtics as favorites. The Pistons, I will put them as a solid play-in team. I do think they're on the border between the playoffs and the play-in. They are very good this year after many, many years in the darkness, whether it's Tobias Harris looking good as an addition from the Sixers. I thought that was a mistake signing him. He looks good. Cade Cunningham was an all-star this year. Absolute stud, 6'8" point guard that can defend, can pass, can rebound. So he is a really good addition. Tim Hardaway Jr. from the Mavs was surprising. Jalen Duren. So they have a good squad. I do think they're going to be, they remind me of the Magic of last year. So they should be really good. The next team is the Indiana Pacers. They're a pretty good team. They're fast. They've gotten better. They started really bad. I thought they were going to either end up tanking or have to wait till next year, but they've improved their standing. They've played really good basketball. They've beaten a lot of good teams. So it seems like they're back to where they were last year. I'll put them as a solid playoff team. I do think that they have the wherewithal. They do have the experience last year of going to the conference finals. Despite beating teams that were all injured, they still have that experience regardless. They played really well. Game 7 in the Garden, that is not an easy game to play. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much more. I don't think they're a championship. I know they're not a championship level team. They can be beat by the Celtics or the Cavs pretty easily. I even think the Knicks would probably beat them in 6 or 7. I think they're actually pretty closely matched. But I do think the Knicks are just a touch ahead of them. But we'll see. Miami Heat are, I just want to say that they're a play-in team. They lost Jimmy Butler. They got Andrew Wiggins, which is a good addition. They got nice size on the perimeter. Terry Rozier, I don't think they're going to give him any issue because of those gambling problems. Bam Adebayo has been kind of quiet. Tyler Hero's had a really, really good year. It was a first-time All-Star. He's played really well, but they're on the same level as Detroit. I don't see them getting out of the first round at all. So I think Detroit has a better shot, honestly, of getting out the first round than Miami does. So Miami, I think, has to look itself in the mirror. I don't know where they go now. They're too good enough to tank, but they're not good enough to win even a playoff series. So we'll see how that goes. The Bucks, I'll put them as a playoff team. I think when you have Giannis, when you have somebody of his caliber, I think you automatically are considered a playoff team. They lost Bobby Portis for 25 games because of the whole, he accidentally took drugs that were banned. There's no accidents. You don't put strange stuff in your body as a professional athlete, even though that drug is very mild and it's not an issue, but they are the NBA guidelines. It is what it is. He's going to come back with like 4 games left in the regular season. He's older, so maybe it'll rejuvenate him. He can work out his body and be pretty good. They, again, are probably another team that they may win a first round series. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first round series, the 4 and 5 matchup between the Pacers and the Bucks. The Pacers owned them last year. I do think the Pacers would beat them again. And the Bucks, I think they're gonna have to blow it up eventually, probably in the offseason. I think they gotta move Giannis, get what they can get. I don't know where he can go, that you can get the type of value that you need. But if Luka only got you 1-star player and an unprotected first, I think you can make that argument to the Bucks. But we'll see if they decide to move him. I think he's under contract for another 2 years. I'd rather just play him and then lose him for nothing than to give him away at a discount. But the Bucks are going nowhere fast. The Magic dealt with injuries. I don't know if they're going to be able to make that comeback. I think they're going to be on the border. I want to say that they're a play-in to / playoff team, similar to the Pistons. They are a little bit healthier now. They still don't have Mo Wagner. They have Franz Wagner. Paolo Banchero is back. You thought adding KCP was going to add something to them. They still need a point guard that can shoot, defend at the level that the Magic likes to defend at. I think that's the one piece that they're missing. I think an Emmanuel Quickley would be great on the Magic. If they can get if they can kind of pry him from the Raptors, who are going to have salary cap issues coming up with signing Brandon Ingram, I think you make that move. The Magic need a point guard that can defend and can shoot and can pass. That's what they're missing. But as of right now, I don't see them winning in the first round. I think they're a first round out. There's just been so much injury and inconsistency, so we'll see about that. The Sixers they need to tank. I don't care what they're thinking. They need to tank. Joel Embiid has not been the same since his knee injury this year. Paul George has been an absolute disaster. Tyrese Maxey, I don't want to say he looks depressed per se, but he definitely looks like he is swimming with no life jacket in the middle of the ocean. It's tough because he's such a great player. I would trade Paul George and I would trade Embiid in the offseason. I would build around Maxey, get players that are younger, healthier, and can defend, and you can kind of stack. I think you move Embiid to the West Coast. You send Paul George back to the Western Conference, maybe send him to Golden State where he wanted to play, and then they can have Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, and Stephen Curry. I think that would be a really good match for Paul George because he doesn't have to be the guy. He just has to hit open shots, really, and defend. But he has been an absolute atrocity on the Sixers. Listen, I'm not the biggest Sixers fan at all, especially how dirty they were last year against the Knicks. But it's like watching your enemy just die a slow death on the side of the street. So the Sixers definitely need to have major conversations. I think they're going to be stubborn and they're going to try to run it back and say this was a one-year anomaly. But I just don't think the pieces fit, but we'll see how it goes. The Raptors also need to tank here. It doesn't make sense for them. They've had just an inordinate amount of injuries this year. RJ Barrett has been out recently. Emmanuel Quickley missed 2 to 3 months. Brandon Ingram has been out. They just got him. They've had too many injuries. They're similar to the Magic, but even worse so. I think they're going to run it back. Like I said, I do think that they're going to have salary cap issues signing Brandon Ingram to that contract, along with Quickley with his huge contract that now looking at it might have been an overpay. No, not might have been. It is an overpay. RJ is making $4 and $100. I think he's a good deal, but I think they're going to have to move him. You don't want RJ Barrett at the 2. It makes no sense unless he's going to be running. I think with him running point, he showed that he can play point. I know he's a native Canadian son, but I do think RJ has to move. The team has too many people that need shots. So unless RJ wants to be a pass first type of player, they already have that with Scotty Barnes, a pass first forward or wing player. I don't think RJ makes sense. I think they got to move him. I said this before, but we shall see. There was one team that belongs in the gutter. It's the Washington Wizards. They have traded Kyle Kuzma. If it was up to them, they would have moved Jordan Poole. So they are an abomination. I think they have 6 wins this year. They're just lost 17 in a row. They're like what the Detroit Pistons were, I think, a few years ago. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't know what else they can do to get any kind of wins. Their best bet is just to lose as many and hope to get, Harper or Flag or somebody like that. They need an injection of talent. what was it? Johnny Davis was an absolute bust. They traded him. They've been wasting pick after pick after pick. They got Valanciunas just to trade him to the Kings. I think they got draft compensation, but it's just not going to be a good look. So that's the Eastern Conference in a nutshell. It's going to be the Celtics and the Cavs in the conference finals, barring injury. The Knicks are the only team that may, if one of them has a major injury, can beat one of them. But nobody else in the East has a real legitimate shot. There's going to be no Magic. There's going to be no Miami Heat run of a few years ago. It's not going to happen. I do think if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick one dark horse, it would be the Pistons. I really like what they're doing. I like the way they're playing. But that's not a likely. That's probably like a less than 1% chance. All right, on we go to the Western Conference.